So I can see there. You know, much like this game of pool, the Vietnam War is similar to this game of pool. But for long, bloody, and arduous. That is what we'll be discussing tonight. The Vietnam conflict.
The Japanese had taken Indochina at the end of the Second World War. When the French forces came in to take it back, the Vietnamese expected to have liberation, or their own country if one will. The French were not prepared to do that, and so they began to engage a war. One major battle of this was Dien Bien Phu. This is interesting because the French lost spectacularly.
And so we go to Lieutenant Monsieur Francis Pierre Raffier to explain his experience at Dien Bien Phu.
Bonjour. Je suis fatigué. Poutine. Merde. Baguette. Pomme de terre. Magnifique. Pamplemousse. Baguette. Québec. Chapeau. Fromage. Et bon. Pomme de terre. Pamplemousse. Bonsoir. Bonjour. Québec. Baguette. Fromage. Et bon. Chapeau.
Dien Bien Phu. This was a massive defeat for the French forces. While losses are typical for the French forces, this was a really massive one. They realized they had to concede the fighting capabilities to the Vietnamese, at least in this sector. In the July 1954 Geneva agreements, they pulled all the forces south of the 17th parallel. This heavily upset the Americans, as they realized that a vote would take place, and if that were to take place, the communists would win, because they are the only real popular party in the sector. Continuing the American tradition of wanting to contain communism, President Eisenhower had a theory in order to make sure that countries around the United States were stable. This theory is called the domino theory. Fortunately, not me, but we have President Eisenhower here to explain the domino effect. Good evening, my American people. I am Dwight D. Eisenhower. You may remember me from such famous conflicts, such as D-Day on the push through France, as Supreme Allied Commander in Europe. We all know that's from World War XI as it's spelled in the history books. Now, as your president, I am here to explain to you a new theory, a new powerful idea, the domino theory. You see, We Americans love our dominoes, it's true, as long as they're red, white, and blue. Not like those filthy old red dominoes the Chinese use. Now, our dominoes are superior, of course, we know this. But our allies dominoes may be the weak link. We all know in a domino chain, if one falls, they all fall. That's the issue, America. This is why I'm here talking to you today. We need to prop up our weaker dominoes, such as Vietnam. Image, if the Vietnam domino falls to the red specter of communism, other dominoes may fall, such as Australia, or Canada, or even your hometown, America. John F. Kennedy wanted to continue the Eisenhower policy of the domino theory, or containment of Soviet aggression. He proceeded to send advisors to the Republic of South Vietnam under the Diem regime. Diem was not a nice man. Mainly Catholic in an extremely Buddhist country, he was exceptionally cruel. He was killed, some say, by a CIA-sponsored coup. Funnily enough, Kennedy was killed 3 weeks later, some say, by a CIA-sponsored coup. Oh, that reminds me, I have a treat for you. I have actual footage of the Diem assassination. I smuggled out of Vietnam myself. I'm just warning you though, it's a little spicy. What was that?
Nasty stuff, really. After JFK was assassinated,
LBJ Johnson came into power. Now, LBJ wanted to believe in a policy of escalation, but unfortunately, he didn't really have an excuse to do that. Now, right after that, his idea of this, the Gulf of Tonkin incident occurred where the USS Maddox came under attack by Vietnamese fishing combat boats. Now, whether this incident actually happened or not is up to debate, but either way, it allowed Johnson to bring in large amounts of troops into the country. This was a policy of escalation. And then the Tet Offensive occurred. The Vietnamese guerrilla forces throughout the country rose up against the ARVN and US forces there, combined with the North Vietnamese push. It was very brutal fighting. I know this, because we have a survivor of the Tet Offensive from the American side, during one of the rushes to defend and crush one of the hotspots just outside Saigon. I was fighting against the Tet Offensive. I shouldn't have left my post at Saigon. Apparently they even started to rise up in the cities. They came out of the tunnels and we couldn't stop them. Too many of them. They began to overrun us and we started taking extreme casualties. I took no pleasure in it. But as a defender of the free world, I suppose that's what I have to do to stop the specter of communism. It was dreadful. Give me covering fire! I'm gonna get off the tripod! Jesus Christ! Oh! Killed them all though. No humans. Just commies. The carnage though, they used ambush tactics. Surprised us whenever they could. We'd always defeat them conventionally, but they just kept coming. Out of the tree line, out of the tunnels, out of the forest, out of the water. Everything, except out of the air. We had mastered the air. They had the tunnels. What are you doing? What are you doing, you little ball of foot? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. After the Tet Offensive, a new policy was brought in, not by LBJ, but by Tricky Dick Nixon, Richard Nixon. It was the policy of Vietnamization, or de-escalation. This was basically told the South Vietnamese that, hey, you're on your own. You're not going to get as much supplies, and that sort of thing. Why did the Americans do this? Oh, bye, friend. Why did the Americans do this? They did this because they could not accept even the meager amount of casualties the Vietnamese hostiles were inflicting upon them. The American public would not accept that. They did not have the stomach for the casualties. This is also a multitude of reasons. Not only because they couldn't take the casualties, there was large protests back home due to these casualties and other reasons, probably because of the expense. And most importantly, the Americans fought conventionally for a conventional style war, whereas the Vietnamese used guerrilla tactics, and they were not able to properly counter that. Vietnamization continued up until the 1973 peace accords, which is really the ending of that sort of thing. US forces were pulled out of the country, and North and South Vietnam stopped fighting in a ceasefire. A year later, after the peace conference, North Vietnamese forces broke that ceasefire and steamrolled South Vietnam, pushing all the way to Saigon, where we see those photos and video of the US helicopters picking up their embassy officials and leaving. Vietnam was united under a communistic government. North and South Vietnam disappeared, and there was just Vietnam. It was a communistic government, though, so they received no support from the United States. They continued to practice their communistic socialistic government until near the start of the 21st century, in which they switched to a more capitalistic style government, similar to China, because they realized that they needed to make money. That is truly the end of the Vietnam experience.
Now look off like you're full of deep thought, emotions, regrets, and terrible flashbacks to Vietnam.
Fall off at the end, please.
So basically, look like you usually
Please fall off behind you. Do it, Sean. Stare off into the distance all ponderfully, do your thing, shaking your head or something. Now throw the rock like you're full of deep thought and emotion. God damn, don't laugh. That sucked.
Derrière. I don't know any other French words. Action.
Throw the rock?
Yankee, go home! Vietnam for the Vietnamese!
Stop.
Vietnam strong! Vietnam, best now!
I need to kill you guys too.